Hi, how are you? My name's Gretchen. I'm waiting on 3 of the coolest fish in the Northwest. Now, I'm not talking about killer sharks, but I am talking about Chinook and sockeye salmon and steelhead trout. You know, those ocean-going rainbow trout. They're in a lot of trouble right now, but I'll tell you about that in just a bit. But first, what makes them so cool? Come with me and I'll show you. The sockeye, chinook, and steelhead are all anadromous. Anadromous. Right now, you're probably asking yourself, what's anadromous? Well, have you ever met a fish that could live in both freshwater and saltwater? Well, now you have, and that's anadromous. The ability to hang out in both types of water isn't the only thing that makes these big fish so fascinating. They are big-time travelers. Try 900 miles on for size.
What did the salmon say to the steelhead when they reached the Pacific Ocean?
Boy, are my fins tired! So what came first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, fish or egg? Well, for demonstration purposes, we'll say egg. Salmon and steelhead eggs hatch from a gravel nest in the bottom of a mountain river. Now, from those eggs emerge baby salmon and steelhead, known as fry. Those fry hang out in schools. They learn the ways of the river, and they eat and they grow. Then, all of a sudden, kind of like a teenager who gets the urge to drive, the fish get the urge to travel. At this time, the teenage fish is called a smolt, and it's ready for its journey. It has the longing for the open road, river. Except one thing, the fish travel backward. Tail first, all the way to the ocean. Now, you would think the smolt would have an easy trip riding the natural river current, but that's not the case. Each 4-inch salmon and steelhead goes through a major change during this trip. Mother Nature has designed their little fish bodies to adjust from life in freshwater to life in saltwater. It's called smolting, and it's a mind-blowing biological change that under normal circumstances would take 3 weeks. The time it takes the smolts to travel from the tributaries of the Clearwater, the Snake, and the Salmon rivers all the way out to the Pacific Ocean. But these days, the circumstances surrounding that trip are anything but normal. Quite a few years back, starting in 1938, well-intending humans built a bunch of dams on the rivers. Now, it stands to reason that if you build a dam to block the flow of water, you also block the migration of fish to and from the ocean. This is where the trouble begins.
What did the salmon say when he ran into the concrete?
Oh, damn! Sure, a lot of smolts make it out to the Pacific Ocean, but they face deadly obstacles along the way. The slow water from the dams delays smolts, and they can die during the smolting process. Many of the tiny fish go through the dam's turbines, which can cause death or injury. And passage through the dam's turbines is like a hydrotube ride from you-know-where. Some go over the dam spillway. This is safer than going through the turbines, but it can also result in death. Ah, solution. Gather up all the smolts and put them in a big boat called a barge, and have that barge deliver the smolts safely past the dam. But there's one big problem. It hasn't solved the smolts migration problems. Barging may have slowed the decline toward extinction, but has failed to turn the corner toward recovery. And here's why. Remember that cool biological change the fish go through in 3 weeks? Barging is stressful and can disrupt the natural process of smolting. It's also difficult to get enough water to flush the smolts through the reservoirs to the barges. Also, you get all those fish crammed into one little space. It's kind of like a crowded classroom. When one little kid gets sick, chances are the rest will get sick. The same can happen to smolts. One little smolt is sick in a barge, the others can get sick, and they may die. The next stop for the smolts is the grocery store, the Pacific Ocean. Although ocean life has its ups and downs, there's no doubt life in the Pacific is pretty happening. And boy, do these fish get big. Some of them grow to be 60 pounds and 4 feet long. Salmon and steelhead really take in the sights. Some even swim as far as Japan. traveling more than 5,000 miles during their 2 to 3 years in the ocean. Then, as if on cue, Mother Nature beckons the fish back home. They feel another urge to make babies. They leave the blue Pacific and travel back up the Columbia River to the Snake River and then to the tiny tributaries where they were once born. But these fish don't carry maps, so how do they find their way home? They follow their noses. It's their sense of smell that leads them back home. Though the adults do better than the smolts, the return trip back up the river is far from easy. Though the fish are very good at swimming against the current, many don't make it home. They must swim through the reservoirs and find the fish ladders to get over the dams. All the while, these fish are making that extraordinary change again. They've spent 1 to 3 years in the ocean where salt water flowed through their gills. Then that big old mama of nature does her magic again, and those fish adjust from salt water back to fresh water, and now they're headed toward the rivers of Idaho. One other thing, during this trip, the adult steelhead and salmon don't eat. No snacking. The awesome fish has all sorts of fuel stored. So you can well imagine, by the time the salmon and steelhead make it up those fish ladders, travel 500 to 900 miles back to their spawning grounds, that's the area where they'll lay their eggs, they're exhausted. They're worn out. They're wasted. In fact, they've lost half their body weight. Oh. But they muster up the energy to dig their nests, that's called a redd, and produce their eggs, laying the groundwork for a future generation of these magnificent fish. Many would think it's sad that after the fish spawn, they die, but really, it's life cycle at work. The dying salmon will help restore nutrients into the stream, fertilizing the waters where its own offspring will hatch in several months. So now you know how salmon and steelhead live and die, and you know what makes them so cool. First, they're born in fresh water as fry. They become smolts, they migrate to the ocean. Then as adult fish, they migrate back to Idaho, back to the tiny tributary where they themselves were born. It's the circle of life. Steelhead traveling the waterways of Idaho was a rite of autumn. The migration also attracted anglers from all over. Look at some of these big fish stories. It's because of the sockeye that Redfish Lake is called Redfish Lake. And speaking of names, it's the same for the Salmon River. But if we're not careful, it could end up the Salmonless River. In fact, for 10,000 years, the Chinook and sockeye salmon and the steelhead trout migrated from the mountains of Idaho all the way out to the blue Pacific and back again, unobstructed, nothing threatening their runs. But now they're facing extinction. Biologists in Idaho's fish hatcheries have worked tirelessly to breed these majestic fish in captivity. However, hatchery fish were never designed to live the life of a wild fish. And here's why. It'd be like a kid who'd sit in the lazy boy all day, channel surfing. Didn't go outside, had her snacks handed to her, didn't learn anything. Put that kid up against a physically fit, street smart kid who knows how to get what she wants. Well, you know who comes out on top. Hatcheries were established to provide fish for recreational fishing. Hatcheries are extremely important in that role, but hatchery fish can't replace the wild fish. As humans, we've tried just about everything to improve the numbers in the fish runs, except one thing, and that's returning the water to a natural river. Recent studies have shown that the 4 dams constructed closest to Idaho, but not in Idaho, may hold the key to recovering Idaho's salmon and steelhead. These dams were not built for irrigation or to control floods, but they were built to generate electricity and make the river big enough to ship products to the ocean. This is one of those 4 dams. Now, right next to the concrete, you see an earthen area where we could just move some earth and create a natural river. And this is what the Army Corps of Engineers believes it would look like. Now, many say it's the only way to save the salmon and steelhead from extinction. And it'll work. But the decision involves more than just fish. We know what's best for the fish, but their needs are just one piece of the big puzzle. We also have to find ways to make sure the needs of people are met, such as providing affordable electricity and ways to get products to market. There are ways to make all the pieces fit, but we must act quickly because time is running out for the fish.
If a more natural river is restored, then you and your kids and your kids' kids and your kids' kids' kids will be able to see what thousands of people saw not that long ago. Rivers thick with fish, including sockeye, that actually turn the water a brilliant red. If we all work together, we can help the fading fish and restore our history and heritage.